to Transforming Moments. This is our third podcast. And so we're really grateful for you guys that are on here that are helping us figure this all out and getting to be our guests on it. And the reason why we started this Transforming Moments podcast was really from something that we do as a staff together here at GCR. And once a month we come together and we tell our God at Work stories. And part of that is really just what it sounds like, is we go around the table and we share these moments with each other of how we see God working either in our lives or in the lives of people at our church. And almost every time we would do that, Jim here is my co-host. He would catch me after those staff meetings and we would both just talk about how good those feel and how we would leave those meetings feeling so uplifted and different, and just noticed that when we actually talk about those things and when we gave those things our attention, it made us more hopeful and it made us more in awe of God and who he is and what he's doing. And so as we kept talking about it, we're like, we don't need to be the only ones that are hearing these stories. Like, there are so many other people that need to be encouraged too. And so really the dream of this podcast was, there's so many God at Work stories that are happening in our church with all of our members. And we want to be able to provide a space where we can actually sit and hear those stories and make those stories available to other people.
To thousands.
Yes. Probably thousands. But it's going to be awesome. And I'm super excited because this one gets to be a really special podcast because of the guests that we have here. And if you've been around at GCR at all in October, you know that it's Missions Month. And it's been a really cool month. Like, I've loved everything we're doing here. We're getting to meet the missionaries and the different mission works that we're involved with. But we thought about this, and there's really just like no way we could miss this opportunity to actually talk to our people who have been on these mission trips and have been transformed through that, because I think you three are perfect examples of the ways that you have seen God at work when you say yes to missions. And so I'm looking forward to the stories we get to hear today.
Yeah. Thanks, Jaden. And speaking of hopeful stories, like you said, we have three great guests here with us, and all three have experienced transformation by being a part of a mission other than in the United States. Let's just say that. You know, there's mission that goes on everywhere, and everywhere we go, there's a mission of God. But there's something unique about leaving our culture and going to another culture and seeing how God works. It's the same God in a completely different place. And it seems like that changes people. It changes, obviously God changes people at that place, but also changes us as we are part of that work. So we've selected you three for a reason, and that is all three of you have gone on a trip like this, and it has been transforming for you. So to begin, I want you to say your name and maybe the trip or the experience that kind of brought you to be a part of this kind of conversation of transforming moments in missions. We'll start over here.
Okay. My name is Melinda Henderson, and I went on my first mission trip to Honduras in 2023. I went in, June of 2023. And then I turned right around and went back in April of 2024. And I would have never thought that I would go on 2 mission trips in that amount of time. But that's how much I loved it. I couldn't wait to go back. And I really am hoping to get to go back again very, very soon. The first time we went, we were building latrines, which is something I would have never dreamed that I would ever be doing. But God has a way of putting you where he wants you. And the next time I went with just women, and we stayed on the coffee farm at Mission Lazarus, and we were helping women, just the women that worked at the coffee farm, and we were showing them how to make soap. And they were showing us. We went up on the mountain, and they showed us how to use machetes and how to clear out the I don't know what you call it, just the excess brush underneath the coffee trees. So if there was a fire, everything wouldn't burn away. It was very interesting. We learned from them and they learned from us, and it was just really, really neat.
Good. Well, man, we're thrilled that you're here to tell those stories. And so we'll go over here into a very familiar face at GCR. So, but I'm not going to say your name. You have to say your name and tell a little bit about your story.
Well, my name is Tim Neal, and I've now been on 55 mission trips. I mean, my first one is in 2008 to Kenya, and almost all of those have been to Kenya. I did get to go to Honduras one time. And yeah, so a fair amount of experience going on trips, not staying for very long. I'm not what you call a missionary, but professional mission trip taking person, I guess.
Well, Tim wins the prize for most trips.
I usually do.
Yeah, that's good. That's
Even
good.
among missionaries.
Well, Tim, we are thrilled. I can't wait to hear more of your stories and your passion for Quo and really the mission of God. So, yes, and this fine lady next to me.
I'm Megan Castleman.
Yes.
I've been on many trips over my time. Started in high school where I grew up in Mexico. I was a part of Aggies for Christ at Texas A&M. Okay. So I got to do a lot of mission work through there, through Thailand, Singapore, Malaysia, and then even went to Kenya with a group there. And then I've also been to KWO since being a part of GCR.
Right. Very awesome. I love that. I love that. You came back with some new skills, some using a machete now. And I'm sure that's true for both of you guys too. What I'm really interested in, because I actually haven't ever been able to go on a foreign mission trip, and it's something I really want to do one day. But I wonder, like, did you have certain expectations of the trip before you went on, or what you thought was going to happen? And then how did those expectations either get met or did not get met?
You know, I don't know if I had a lot of expectations. I think I probably had more fears.
Okay, yeah.
You know, when you think about Honduras and you think about what you hear on the news, you know, when I was thinking about it, I had Wendy and Michael come over to my house and talk with my husband and I, because the first thing you think of is the dangers of the country. And we were assured. So I think maybe those were the things that were on our mind, and they assured us that where we were going was safe. And of course, when we were traveling, we would get stopped by the military, you know, but it wasn't as dangerous as I thought. So some of those perceptions were alleviated. But I think at first I thought I was a little fearful of, what if I'm not able to do all of the spiritual things that you think that you're going to be having to do on a mission trip? But this was more, it was more work. Yeah. It was about meeting the needs, the basic needs that people have. And that's what I learned is you have to meet the basic needs that people have before you're able to reach them, the spiritual needs that they have. And that's what we were there to do. And that I knew I could handle. I knew I could handle. And so I didn't go into it with a lot of preconceived notions. That's what I was just trying to be obedient to the Lord. That's part of my story leading up to it. I just was in a place of trying to be obedient. So I was just going to do whatever I was supposed to do. So I don't think I had a whole lot of expectations going in. I think I expected the roads to be better than they were. And things like that, but that wasn't a big deal. You know, I got past that, but I actually was not expecting it to be as wonderful as it was. Probably, it exceeded whatever I could have imagined. Actually.
Oh, that's awesome. What about you, Tim?
So that was 2008 was my first trip, and it was I'd somehow missed out on all the high school mission trips, and I mean I grew up in the church, but well, I was not the ideal youth group member, shall we say, at the time. So I didn't get invited on some of those trips, but so my first trip was to Kenya, and I had an assignment. Basically, I was going to take pictures and to make video of the orphans' work that had already started. So I was grateful that I had a purpose, that I knew exactly what I'd be doing. But at the same time, I was kind of terrified. I'd never been off the continent. I'd been, to Mexico, touristy, and mostly I was afraid, and I was not prepared for how different everything would be. I remember thinking the first night we were there, I was looking up, and I loved looking at the stars, and I looked up, trying to find some constellations and, to gain some comfort, I guess. I don't know, and they're not there. It's a totally different set of stars than what I'm used to seeing. I'm like, golly, the stars are different. Everything is different. And that first day was a little unnerving for me, which may seem crazy now after that many trips, but that's the way it felt for me.
That's good. Megan?
Well, I'll start with a funny story. So my first trip, I was going down to Mexico. I was in high school. And I couldn't leave whenever, I think I had like a new student conference going into A&M, and I couldn't leave the same day that everybody else was. So I got to go down a few days later, and it was like a guy at our church, he traveled a lot, so he donated his miles so that I could fly down. Well, he donated his miles, he traveled a lot, so I flew first class down to Mexico, and I was like, mission trips are great. That was my first experience with it. But when I was at A&M, there was a trip called AFCO, Aggies for Christ, in the Orient. So we went to Thailand, Singapore, and Malaysia, and it was kind of a legendary trip. It had been going on for 30-something years every other year. And so I'd heard about it, and I was like, I just wanted to be a part of it. I needed friends. It sounded awesome. I didn't even know where Thailand was. I called my parents. I was like, I think I'm going to go on this trip. I don't know where it is, So I had zero expectations going in, and it was the greatest thing that had ever happened for me. Then when I went back 2 years later, it was a different experience because I was in a leadership role. I co-led the team. It was also all different people. So it was a different experience. And that's when I started realizing every trip is going to be different. It doesn't mean they're going to be bad. They're just different. And so you have to kind of change your expectations each time.
Yeah. One of the things that I think all of you said, and we've been talking about this as far as transforming moments, is all of you really, as far as your expectations, you didn't know what to expect. And so sometimes we are transformed when we just do the next thing. You know what I mean? Whenever we take that step, whenever we are a little bit scared that we can't see the same stars and we don't know where Thailand is, the concerns about, Honduras. And then also, Melinda, when you said, I didn't know if I was going to be, when you think of a missionary, you got your little Bible in your back pocket, and you got to have all the right answers. But actually, it's more about just taking that step, like you said. Just the next day, the next event, the next task, and in doing that, transformation happens always along the way. Thinking about going overseas in a completely different culture. Sometimes that helps you change, or it helps change the way you see things. If I don't want to, this sounds a little derogatory. I'll just say that right up front. But if you spent every day of your life in the Midland, Odessa area, it's going to affect the way you view everything else. And I say that we just happen to be in Midland, Odessa. And it's just basically, if you stay in one place your whole life, it's going to affect the way you see the world. So give us some thoughts on how this experience changed the way you see the world or saw the world, and how that's changed, how that stayed with you. I know, Melinda, it's just been a couple years, but for you two, I mean, we're talking quite a few years. And so how did that experience still stay with you, that kind of how we see the world differently?
Well, I just know just going somewhere else and seeing the way they looked at God and the way they looked at everything, seeing the way they lived and the joy that they had with having very little to nothing. Mm-hmm. I mean, at times it made me feel ashamed. At times it made me just feel like, get your act together. At times it made me think, boy, I wish my grandkids could see this. Mm-hmm. At times I was like, every kid in the United States of America needs to come over here or go somewhere so they can stop griping about, when they don't have the very, newest thing. and just the way they started their days, at Mission Lazarus, every single morning is devoted. There's a devotional every single morning before work, every single morning. And I just thought, boy, if we in America could start our days like that, whereas over here, unless you're in a place of where you work for God, a church or whatever, you're not allowed to start your work day like that with your employees. Boy, what if we could do that every single day? But over here, it's encouraged. Work and God don't mix. It just the joy these people had and the love that they had for the Lord was so genuine and so real and so a part of their DNA that was different than what I see here.
Right.
And you come back from that and you want that to stay with you, but that can start to wane if you don't work on that every single day. It just, when those ladies every single morning would have those devotionals and we got to do that with them, it was so special. And like I've said before, they're singing in their language, they're talking in their language, and we're trying to understand it. But you know what? It didn't matter because we're all praising God in the same, whatever language that we're in. And it was so neat to experience that and realize that we're all loving the same Lord, and we're all doing it in our own way. And it does change how you live. It does make a difference to go and see that somewhere else.
Yeah.
And see them passing that on to their children. And they didn't need all the things.
Right.
They just didn't need all the things to be happy. They were so much happier than a lot of people I see living here.
Right.
And that really does stick with you. And, I took pictures of a lot of the children over there, and they're hanging in my office at work. Tim's pictures on the wall inspired me, and I had a bunch of canvases made, and I have a collage of canvases in my office that are mixed in with my family and mixed in with those kids, because their faces and make an impression on you. And they just, I think about them a lot every day because they're there for me to remember.
Right.
Because that can fade from your memory. But those little girls in their little dresses that have been brought over from America and given to it just, those faces mean a lot. And there are smiles on their faces, and they follow you around. That you're making a difference, and they're watching what you're doing, and they're it really does change your life.
Yeah. Man, thanks for sharing that.
Sorry,
Yeah.
it took too long.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
Well, I was not prepared for the poverty. I'd read about it, and of course you see pictures on TV. And the thing about it is, when you live in America, you can turn your head and miss poverty. You can be told and you can be shown. You can watch a video. You can get into it. But as soon as you step out of your house, it's gone.
Yeah.
And my first trip, we had to, the place we were staying is on one side of Nairobi, and we have to traverse the whole city to get out. And at that time, there was no big highway, so it was just an hour and a half stuck in Nairobi in traffic. And I remember there was so many people, and mostly walking, but cars, pollution, dirt, people just going everywhere. Everything reminded you that there was little here. But there was one moment, there was this, there'll be these wheeled carts that are pulled by donkeys. Often they're carrying fresh water from one part of the city to the slums or something like that. And we were stuck in a traffic jam at a roundabout, and there was this donkey cart loaded with water, jugs of water, very heavy, but there wasn't a donkey. And there was just this man.
Right.
And he was just struggling. I mean, he must have been superhuman to be pulling that thing at all. And how he got it started, I don't have any idea. But I remember looking at that guy thinking, this world sees his value for only what he can do with his body. Mm-hmm. All he can do is pull a cart full of water, that a donkey, he's doing work that an animal should be doing. And that struck me. This is how most of the world lives. Not everyone has it quite as bad as he did. But, and then there were signs of it everywhere. Like, this is, in America, it's real easy for us to get, and this is the way I grew up. It may just be a West Texas thing, or it may just be a Tim thing. I don't know. But we sometimes get in our heads that, people are poor because they kind of deserve it. They're lazy, or they're maybe they, as children, they don't deserve it. But you see an adult person comes out of a lifetime of poverty, and it's really easy to get into the mindset of, man, if you just made better choices, you wouldn't be there. Because look at me, I'm not any different from you. And it's really easy to even if you know that's not true, to have it be part of how you see the world, unless you see it in a place where no one can succeed, where you see the lack of opportunity is so profound that you realize how lucky you are. You're blessed, yes, but God blesses them in different ways just as much. But mostly, you're just lucky that you were born here, mm-hmm. And that does fade when you come home. In the beginning, when you first come home, though, it can be, for some people, it can be very painful. I remember thinking, man, I want to sell everything I have. I'm ridiculously rich. This is wrong. It's completely wrong. And it's not realistic. We live here. This is the world we live in, and we have to live in it. So, but yeah, that overwhelming sense that you have what you have because you're lucky. You didn't do anything to deserve it. It's a lot like, it's just exactly like salvation. In fact,
yes,
it's
exactly.
It's a really good reminder that, in heaven, that guy pulling the cart is probably going to be telling me what to do. And because he's not worshiping his stuff, there's nothing getting in the way between him and the Lord. And in the grand scheme of things, they'll be the lucky ones. So it'll be the bigger challenges for us. Can we get over our wealth?
Right.
Can we find our way through that eye of the needle, as opposed to, those whose door is wide open?
That's awesome. That's great, Megan.
Yeah, so I feel like going on all my mission trips has really helped me as in my profession as a nurse practitioner. I've been through a lot of school and training to be a provider and helping people manage their chronic conditions. But through all my years of going on mission trips, I feel like it's helped me have empathy, because every day I'm seeing people of different ages, beliefs, socioeconomic status, all different. And so I feel like I really am doing mission work every single day with my patients. They trust me to provide good medical care, but I'm also there walking through dark times of losses of spouses or children, getting terminal, disease diagnoses. But then I'm also there, part of the joy of, people coming and celebrating 50-year anniversaries. They become citizens of the United States, babies born, all those different types of things. But it's just what I've learned over the years, all these different mission trips, encountering different people has helped me, my day-to-day work life here in Midland.
That's fantastic. I wanted to say one thing, and I'll let you help us move on, Jaden. I remember the one mission trip I went on, it just echoes, I'm just echoing what everybody said. It really does change your view when God talks about how this message is for all nations. You know what I mean? It's like when you go, you realize when he says all nations, he means I live in such a small place in comparison to how God sees that world. And like you said, it's just like every person matters. Every person matters. And so, man, thanks so much for those. Thanks so much for those stories. Now, I'll let Jaden help us here.
No, I love it. That was so fun to hear, like all those stories. And I think, Melinda, something you were saying, I love that story about you hanging up the pictures. And the cool part, if y'all don't know, but if you're around GCR, like we have that main hallway before you get into the worship center, we have all of our foreign mission partners. And Tim has worked really hard to get those pictures up on the wall. And I remember my first time walking through the building when I was just like on a secret mission of, I had been asked to work here, but I wasn't like letting everyone know that I was going to interview. And that was the first thing me and Isaiah noticed when we walked into the door was all of those pictures on the wall. And it was the first thing we asked about was, what are those? And like, oh, y'all really are out there going to the nations, like, and helping people to hear this. And it's a story that's bigger than this church. And so it's so cool to see how you guys have all been a part of that, and that pictures are so powerful. So even like you going and taking those pictures that first trip and bringing those back, how powerful that is. And we talk about this with the teens all the time in a different context, but like with camps and transforming moments, I think it's so easy. I think one of the best weapons the enemy can use against us is our loss of memory and how easy it is to forget things like you were talking about. And we have to remind them all the time. We're like, what's that thing you don't want to forget? What's that thing you don't want to forget from this? Because as long as you come home and you wait 2 or 3 weeks and that memory just disappears, you're going to go right back to normal. And that's not the point of these moments happening. That don't become transforming if you just forget about them. And so we've heard a couple of stories that I love so much, but I just wonder, are there any more of those like moments on your trip that you're like, I never want to forget that experience that happened?
Gosh, there were just, I don't know that I have a lot of really specific I mean, there's just so many special moments. I mean, there's moments of just sitting at the big table on the coffee farm with Henry and some of the folks from Mission Lazarus drinking lemongrass tea that they make and sharing stories. I mean, one thing for me was actually hearing, Henry's one of the people that works in Mission Lazarus.
We appreciate your campaigning for him there.
Yes. Yeah. He actually told his story of how he snuck into the United States and worked for many years. And, with everything going on with the immigration issue right now, and, I'm a pretty conservative person, and listening to his story and why he did it and how he did it, it's made me have a tension of having a little bit more compassion and understanding for some of the reasons people come over, and how they do that, and things like that. Just hearing what some of the people in these countries go through and how they're trying to survive. Things like that. It's made me rethink some of the way I think about things at times. It's I love how Mission Lazarus has worked to help further the cause of women by only employing women on their coffee farm, and how they're trying to help their families and help the cause of women. Just those moments and just times in the vehicles sharing stories. There's so many intimate moments that happen that you kind of almost take for granted. Then there's the little things of dealing with the bugs and there's just but one of the things for me too is it's changed my outlook on missions. It's matured my thinking about missions. Used to, I thought, well, why are we doing all these things in other countries when we've got people in our own country to take care of? But after being at GCR for years and watching what we do in Kenya and getting close to people that are really involved with this, it's really changed my outlook on that. And I see what God, the work that God has said for us to do all over. And So that has been really transforming for me. And then when I go to Honduras, I got to walk across one of the bridges that has been made from money that has been sent over from the States. And I've been in the trucks crossing the river, one of the rivers, going, how do these trucks get across these rivers? You know, these vehicles are amazing. But then, you know, Jared puts out a call, meaning they're trying to build a bridge over this river. I didn't hesitate, and I sent money for that because I've been there and I know what they're needing to do. Yeah. So it transforms when you see the need in person. Yeah. It makes it more real, and then it's a lot easier to give to the need. So there's just a lot of things. It just matures your view when you have the opportunity to be there and see what the needs are, and all of those things are transforming moments. Being there, hearing the story, seeing the people, it all changes your view.
That's beautiful. Thank you, Melinda. Mm-hmm. That's probably more stories for a different podcast. I'd love to hear about all the food.
There's too many to do in this amount of
and
time.
Drinks you guys have had on these trips. Lemongrass tea. That's fun.
Very good.
Yeah.
Lemongrass right off the mountain.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Just pick it from like right outside.
Yes, it's so good. And boil it right there.
Yeah, they're like, we're going to have lemongrass tea.
That's crazy.
So good.
That's awesome. And you've shared with me some tea from Kenya that you brought back to the office one time.
Yeah, I've learned way more about tea than
I'm just
any American has a right to know.
Sure. Tim, do you have any of those moments?
Oh, wow. A few dozen.
Yeah.
I always tell the story of a photograph that I took, and probably everyone has heard it a million times, but
not here.
I was standing. It was my very first trip, and we'd been there for about a week or more. And I was standing in the doorway of this dining hall at this orphanage, and there was a girl in a little dress, ridiculously formal dress for the occasion, probably her only dress. And she was very quiet, and I gauged her to be about 5. And I was taking pictures. I've been taking so many pictures, and I'd kind of become a little more used to it, I guess. Not numb, but maybe a little. But she came up in the doorway beside me and just stood beside me and was staring up at me. And so I just, took a picture. And I looked at it on the camera and I was like, okay, that's going to be good. I want to look at that one again later. And so later that night, I'm at the hotel and I'm looking at this picture, and it is really good. And I thought, okay, I'm going to work on this one for a minute because this could be like the picture for this trip. And it was. But she had this little twinkle in her eye. It's the same reflection you're all seeing in our eyes when there's a light. Yeah. There's always a sparkle in somebody's eye. It's the light that's coming from what they're seeing. But it had a weird shape. And when you're photo editing, you don't want weird shapes. You want things to be, pleasing. And I'm looking at that. Do I need to fix it? And I couldn't figure out why it had that weird shape. And then I realized that the sun was behind me. And so what she was seeing, the light in her eye, was the sun eclipsed by me. Oh. Because she was just looking straight at me. I had this big giant floppy hat on, and that's why the picture looked so stupid. Why the shape was weird. Yeah. And obviously I couldn't fix that. But when I zoomed in tighter and I could see my face. And that's what she was seeing. Mm-hmm. And it's a perfectly normal thing. You can look at any photograph and you'll see, if you look very carefully and you can zoom in enough, you can see what that person was looking at. It's not anything miraculous. But God did something in that moment to my heart that said, this is more important than you think. Because this person is looking up at you and they're seeing something. You represent something to them. And that's one thing that I think it's easy to miss when you're going on a mission trip, is you're concerned about, rightly, your own self and your safety and what you're seeing and what you're learning. But other people are learning from you. Yeah. They're seeing something in you, and you represent something to them. And by by that moment, I realized that, those kids are looking at me, whether I deserve it or not. They're seeing hope. They're seeing the love of Christ in me, whether they should be or not, whether I deserve it or not. And I mean, that's the moment I knew that I was stuck. And that was halfway through my first trip.
Oh,
So
that's awesome.
it actually did stick, and it turned into a lifetime of those kind of memories, one after another. Another thing I would just say on trips like that, the Holy Spirit, speaks in a still small voice. We're always told that. And I remember going through my entire life to that point and rightfully saying, I don't think I've ever heard it.
Yeah.
I feel like God had been guiding my path. I think that's true. But heard the voice? No. But when you go to a place where there's nothing, and there are people who are there with joy, who love the Lord, and you can see it in the way they live their lives and the way they're expressing it to you, and you realize that you can be happy without stuff. You realize that it's not so much that the voice is quiet; it's that you can't hear it for all the noise.
Yeah.
When you're here.
That's good.
Your stuff makes noise. Your busyness of your life makes noise. The pressure of making money makes noise.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to hear the Spirit speak. But if you go on a mission trip and you pay attention to God working in the lives of others and pay attention to how they are seeing you,
Yeah.
that voice becomes a shout. It is really hard to drown it out.
That's awesome. Thanks, Tim. What about you, Megan?
Yeah. So after I graduated college, I was working in a lab and wasn't happy, but trying to kind of figure out what am I going to do with my life. And that's when I decided I'm going to try to go to nursing school. So my grades in college weren't good enough, so I was having trouble getting into schools. But I found this school in Oklahoma City, and at the time I grew up in Houston, so I was living in Houston. They would accept me, but I had to kind of like retake some classes. So I was still working. I was going to night classes, trying to make A's. I had to redo them. And so I was doing all this. And in the meantime, about a year before all this, I was going to go to Made in the Streets in Kenya with one of my friends' churches that I knew. So I had planned I was going on this trip. And so it was like, right before the trip, I made my final A. I got accepted to the school and I quit my job because I was going to go like right after this 2-week trip. So Made in the Streets, it's in Kenya, and it's a program that takes kids that are living in the slums, the poorest of the poor kids. They're orphans, have nowhere to go. They take them to a program. They give them education, teach them a trade so that they hopefully don't go back to the streets. So that's what we were going to go help. And every morning they have a chapel. And so you're just like kind of crammed in these classrooms with like 50 little kids. And the kids are probably junior high to high school age. They're like jammed in this little classroom. And, they want to hear from us. And so it's my turn to go. And so I was telling them, about my life and what I was doing and, trying to get into nursing school, my persistence and working hard to make those grades. And so I'll pause so one of my favorite sounds is in sports when you make the big play, the big touchdown, and it's that instant roar that lasts less, it's a split second, just that roar. Yeah. And then I just love that sound. And in that moment, so I was telling them all about, what I was going through. And I said, and I got into nursing school. And all those kids just erupted in a roar in joy and just screaming. Yeah. And I was like, these kids cheering for me just because I got into nursing school, they have nothing. They're cheering for me, And so, that moment, I think about it often. It's really pushed me during difficult times and then when I was going back to school, advancing my career even more, but just, different times in life, and just think of those kids, just that roar, that excitement.
That's such a great story. It's such a great story. And all of your stories were so good. And I have to say this, kudos to us, Jaden. that we picked these three. You know, I mean, but your stories have just been so great, and I've realized our last question. It's a very redundant question now that I think about it, because I think everything that you have said answers. The last question is, if there's someone out there who needs encouragement to go on a trip like this, what would you tell them? Well, I really think that, you know, what you've said has already encouraged them. But if there is anything else, because like I said, there's people like, you know, Melinda said that, you know, you always go, why are we doing this? Or just when you think about these trips, what would you say to someone who's kind of either on the fence or not even really considering a trip like this, what you would say to encourage them to maybe give it a shot? Anyone, you don't have to go in order.
I just say, if the question says if they're contemplating it. To me, if they're contemplating it, that's already the Holy Spirit talking to them.
Right.
I mean, for me, like I said, it was never on my radar. Mm-hmm. But I had been in this place in my life where I'd been saying, Lord, I'm just going to be obedient. And it didn't matter what it was. I mean, we were in the gym at that time, and Alan had been saying, we want everybody to sit close to the front. Well, I was going to be obedient, so I was sitting close to the front. I mean, it was just whatever it was going to do. Well, Wendy and Michael got up and started talking about Honduras, and I just started bawling. Mm-hmm. I've never been affected by, I mean, Tim's gotten up a million times. I mean, I've heard the stories a million times, and not that Tim never affected me, but I'd never started crying. Mm-hmm. But at that moment, that's when the Lord had decided that's when it was time for me. And I was just like, really, God? You know, this was not my thing. But that's when it was. Right. So, I mean, I feel like if you're contemplating it, that's the Holy Spirit talking to you.
Right.
So just be obedient. I mean, even though I had them come over, I was worried, you know, about the safety, or I already knew in my mind, I have to do it.
Right.
You know, these were just all kind of maybe things to try to find a way out. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But I already knew in my mind, he's telling me to do this. I have to do it.
That's great.
So just
if the people are contemplating it, that's maybe halfway there. Even
it's just
more.
Like you said, just take the next step.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it. It's, you know, God will give you whatever you need, and He's putting you wherever He wants you to go. So you can't really don't say no.
Absolutely. Tim or Megan, do you have anything else?
Yeah, I was going to say, a lot of people will say, well, I don't have anything to offer. I don't have any skills. And I think the biggest thing is just showing up. Mm-hmm. That's the biggest impact that you can have, is just showing up and sitting with people, and they realize that you're different from them, but you came a long way to be with them. Also, like I've been on mission trips with a lot of different people, and I can tell you, mission trips are not for everybody. But if you do go, it'll change your life.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And you just might surprise yourself. You just might actually like it. Might actually have fun and enjoy it.
Yeah.
So I say go.
That's good.
Yeah, I think Megan had it exactly right. I mean, so many, especially American men I seem to talk to, they're like, okay, if I were to go, what would I do? I don't know. It doesn't matter. You know,
something.
The thing is, you're not going to go in most places and do manual work and be of much help. You know, Mission Lazarus has a particular thing that, you know, they're having Americans come and do physical work to show the love of Jesus to people who could do the work for themselves. But you're not going there to do something for other people. You're going there to be someone for other people.
That's really good.
So you can't do anything that they need unless you're a doctor. I mean, you could certainly, you know, if you do have specific skills, obviously there are some that transfer real easily. Dentists can stay busy 100% of the time.
Yeah.
But most people, you know, what you have to offer is just love. And just your presence. And that's something we don't value as much in this culture anymore. Is people like, when was the last time somebody just dropped by your house and you weren't kind of upset that they did? You know, but personal visits, especially from a long way away, mean a lot to people who don't travel. It's a big deal when you
Yeah.
have gone all the way around the other side of the planet to see somebody, or even if it's just into the next state, and you made the effort, and it will mean a lot to them. Just your presence is all that's required.
Yeah.
God will do the rest.
What do they do when you show up to the villages? Do you have a big welcoming party every time?
You know, like it depends on the tribe. You know,
Yeah.
because our locations are kind of spread all around Kenya. But there's the Kalenjins and the Kipsigis. They're kind of cousin tribes, and they do have a very elaborate arrival ceremony. When
Okay.
you go to an orphanage, there's one place where at Londiani, you're going to be stopped at the gate. The gates are going to be closed. There's going to be a string with flowers tied in it. All the kids going to be on the other side. There's going to be some little girls with
Yeah.
baskets of flowers, and they're going to come up with a pair of scissors, and you're going to cut the thing and open the gate. It's like a
man.
a Chamber of Commerce grand opening every time. I've been to that orphanage, 50 times probably, and it's always the same. They're always just so happy to see you, and they're whether they do that or not. You can see it in their faces. They're happy
Yeah.
you're there.
I just think there's something to learn from that too, and that we can take home. And that's what I love with all of y'all's stories. Like, we go on these mission trips and you want to go and be a blessing, but every person I've ever talked to that goes on the mission trips, and like we send teens to Honduras every summer, every time they come back, they're like, we were blessed by them. Like, they blessed us so much. And
They'll
they
go
taught
get
us,
you 2 liters of Cokes and try
Yeah.
to give you a Coke
Yeah.
or
just cutting mangoes off trees or climbing up the tree to go get something
Right.
for them. I'm like, that's amazing. And so, like, we hear all these stories with our teens too. And that's, you said it, like, I think every kid needs to go on one of those things. And like, after listening to all your stories, I'm like, when's the next chance that I can go? I have 2 little ones right now, but that's not an excuse
not to
either.
mention the beauty
But-
of the countries.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, just getting out of the United States and seeing
Just to
something
see
new.
the beauty
There's a lot
of
of
the
beautiful
country.
things, places to go in the U.S. But Kenya sits on the equator, but at a high elevation, so that it's like a terrain you don't see. There is no equivalent in the United States.
Oh, that's awesome.
God's beauty is everywhere, and it's vast.
One of the things I heard a long time ago, years ago, that like has stuck with me is that we serve a missional God. And something about that statement just like changed the way I looked at the Lord, that like everything he does, like he sent Jesus to us, like he meets people where they're at. And so getting to hear you guys and your stories, and just the way that you kept saying yes, and you keep saying yes to going into these places to be someone for those people, is really, really beautiful. And so thank you guys for the way y'all are doing that. I have loved getting to hear y'all's stories.
Yeah, me too. It's been great. I hope that one day when we finish one of these podcasts that we get that roar, that you're talking about, Megan. It's like
Andrew can make that.
Yeah,
That's what the
no,
host is
and
for.
just what a great day this has been. Thank you all so much for coming in and being part of our Transforming Moments podcast. And thank you so much for joining us. And you will see us again next month. And as we leave, remember, let's make every day a transforming day.
Thank you.
That was fantastic.